الحمد لله الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعد وبعد. Alhamdulillah. The Imam, he is taking us still through the ahkam regarding talaq. And just to summarize and go over some of the ahkam on talaq, it is necessary just to review over the ayat. So we look at them where the Imam rahimahullah, he had said, quote, and Allah the Exalted has said, وَلَا تَنْكِحُوا الْمُشْرِكَاتِ حَتَّى يُؤْمِنْ وَلَأَمَةٌ مُؤْمِنَةٌ خَيْرٌ مِّن مُشْرِكَةٍ وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَتْكُمْ وَلَا تُنْكِحُوا الْمُشْرِكِينَ حَتَّى يُؤْمِنُوا وَلَعَبْدٌ مُؤْمِنٌ خَيْرٌ مِّن مُشْرِكٍ وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَكُمْ أولئك يدعون إلى النار والله يدعو إلى الجنة والمغفرة بإذنه ويبين آياته للناس لعلهم يتذكرون. Do not marry the women who are idol worshippers until they believe. A believing servant is better than an idol-worshipping woman otherwise, even though they may be alluring to you. And do not marry the idol-worshipping men until they believe. A slave or servant that is a male believer is better than an idol-worshipping male that is the same, even though they may allure you. These they call to the fire, and Allah calls to the paradise and to forgiveness by His permission. And He clarifies His signs for the people so that they might remember and know. Surat Al-Baqarah, Ayah 221. And the Exalted One has said, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْمَحِيضِ قُلْ هُوَ أَذًى فَاعْتَزِلُوا النِّسَاءَ فِي الْمَحِيضِ. They ask you about the monthly cycle, say it is a harm and a pollution, so stay away from the women in the monthly cycle. وَلَا تَقْرَبُوهُنَّ حَتَّى يَطْهُرْنَ. And do not approach them until they have purified themselves. فَإِذَا تَطَهَّرْنَا فَأْتُوهُنَّ مِنْ حَيْثُ أَمَرَكُمُ اللَّهُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ التَّوَّابِينَ وَيُحِبُّ الْمُتَطَهِّرِينَ. And when they have purified themselves, then come to them in the way in which Allah has commanded you. Indeed, Allah loves those who are repentant, and He loves those who purify themselves. نِسَاؤُكُمْ حَرْثٌ لَكُمْ فَأْتُوا حَرْثَكُمْ أَنَّا شِئْتُمْ وَقَدِّمُوا لِأَنفُسِكُمْ وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّكُمْ مُلَاقُوهُ وَبَشِّرِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Your women are a tilth for you. So come to your tilth, however it has been given to you and however you will. And send something beforehand from yourselves. And fear Allah and know that you shall meet Him one day. Give glad tidings to the believers. وَلَا تَجْعَلُوا اللَّهَ عُرْضَةً لِأَيْمَانِكُمْ أَن تَبَرُّوا وَتَتَّقُوا وَتُصْلِحُوا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ وَاللَّهُ سَمِيعٌ عَلِيمٌ. Do not make Allah an excuse in your oaths not to fulfill them. Have fear of Allah and do justice and rectification between the people. Allah sees and knows all things. لا يؤاخذكم الله باللغو في أيمانكم ولكن يؤاخذكم بما كسبت قلوبكم والله غفور رحيم. Allah will not take you to account for what you said in your oaths forgetfully or without sincere intention to fulfill it, but He will take you to account for that which you had made firm determination on in your hearts. And Allah is forgiving and benevolent. Surat Al-Baqarah, Ayat 222 to 225. Close quote. Now, what this is just basically a review of is what we've covered so far. And then we look in the area of those who forswore their wives. We already discussed that last week. I want to give a very brief review of what the Imam said before we move to the next area, because it is important, because it centers on the issues surrounding talaq. The ayat that the Imam quoted from those who forswear their wives, it is the ayah لِلَّذِينَ يُؤْلُونَ مِن نِّسَائِهِمْ تَرَبُّصُ أَرْبَعَةِ أَشْهُرٍ فَإِن فَاءُوا فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ رَّحِيمٌ وَإِنْ عَزَمُوا الطَّلَاقَ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ سَمِيعٌ عَلِيمٌ. For those who have forsworn their wives that they shall not come near them, they shall wait for 4 months. And if they fulfill that, then indeed Allah is forgiving and merciful that they should reconcile. If they have firm determination for divorce, then Allah is all hearing, all knowing. Surat Al-Baqarah, Ayat 226 to 227. So it's within these ayat, those who forswear their wives, we came across a difference of opinion among the ulama about those who forswear their wives. And it's centered on what the ayat meant. Those who would say that those who forswore, they would read it in this way: those who forswore their wives shall wait for 4 months. If they should reconcile, then indeed Allah is forgiving and merciful. And if they have firm determination for talaq, then indeed Allah hears all and knows all. What the first group of ulama who say this means that it's not a talaq that is ba'ina. So there's 2 types of talaq. The raj'ah, where you can reconcile, and the ba'ina, which is permanent, where you cannot reconcile. They're saying, no, this is a talaq in which it is 1 or 2. It has the same force as a talaq of once or twice, and they can choose to reconcile. And then if they want to divorce, then they can divorce. This is the first position. But a second position is to say, no, when it says those who forswore their wives shall have a 4-month waiting period, and if they return, then indeed Allah is forgiving and merciful. And if they had determined talaq, then indeed Allah is all hearing, all knowing. What the second group of ulama is saying is, if you investigate and find out that they only meant by that out of anger or 1 talaq, then it's 1. But if you find out that they firmly intended, if they intended by that not talaq, then it's not talaq, the second category of ulama. But if they intended talaq, if you ask him, did you intend talaq by this? And he says, yes. It doesn't matter what he says, oh, well, I didn't mean 2 or 3. The wording of what he said is so severe that it is considered as 3. And it has to do with how those ulama understood that ayah, and how they saw the meaning of that ayah and how it played out. Because the meaning of the ayah, its application, and how you see the ayah being applied is where the difference of opinion is coming from. So, you will meet some ulama who say those who forsworn their wives, it counts as the same as if they had pronounced talaq 3 times in one sitting. It counts the same because of the fact that they said words that are effective of that same category. Get out of my life forever. I never want to see you again. I divorce you 1,000 times. He didn't say 3 at once, but he said, I divorce you 1,000 times. Well, that has the same legal force as 3. Because what would it mean, I divorce you 1,000 times, other than that's it for the marriage, right? But there's the category that say, no, this ayah, the reading of the ayah, we should understand from it that it means that if they decide after the 4-month period to reconcile, they can. But if they decide not to, then the divorce occurs. So this is what we had discussed last week. Now, the next statement that we looked at, just in quick review, is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He had said, وَالْمُطَلَّقَاتُ يَتَرَبَّصْنَا بِأَنفُسِهِنَّ ثَلَاثَةَ قُرُوءٍ. Those who have been divorced shall wait by themselves for 3 quru'. وَلَا يَحِلُّ لَهُنَّ أَن يَكْتُمْنَ مَا خَلَقَ اللَّهُ فِي أَرْحَامِهِنَّ إِن كُنَّ يُؤْمِنَّ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. It is not permitted for those women that they should conceal what Allah has created in their wombs, if indeed they believe in Allah and the last day. Surat Al-Baqarah, Ayah 228. So the first part of this ayah, those women that have received the divorce shall wait for 3 quru'. Now we discussed that there's a difference of opinion among the ulama about what the 3 quru', what that means. The understanding of the Basrins and the Kufans, which is, the Kufans is the understanding of between 3 and 10,000 Sahaba that we are calling the Hanafi madhab. They understand that it means 3, they understand that the 3 quru' means 3 monthly cycles. The Basrins is Ali, Hassan, Hussein, Aisha, and others, which is what we're calling the Hanbali school. They understand the same thing. So, qar or quru' in plural means 3 monthly cycles. Now, let us look at the reality. A man pronounces 1 talaq upon his wife while she is in a state of purity. He says to her, Anti taliq, you are divorced. He says it 1 time to her in a state of purity. This is best case scenario. There'll be cases where she'll be in her monthly cycle or she'll be pregnant. We won't deal with that yet. She's in her best state for the sunnatul talaq, the sunnah of talaq. She's in a state of purity. So he pronounces the talaq 1. She's pure. She then has her monthly cycle. 1 monthly cycle. She has the ghusl after the monthly cycle. Now the marriage is finished. But they have the possibility to reconcile. But he has the first right. Now he can't immediately take his wife back, but he has the first refusal. He has the first right to say, I want to come back. I want to reconcile. They may do so if they draw up another aqdun nikah, because they have broken the aqd or the uqda. They've broken that because they've divorced. But they can still reconcile. They get back together. Things seem to be fine. But then the arguments start, things become rocky. He pronounces a second talaq. Again, the best case scenario, it's in her time when she's pure. She's not having her monthly cycle. She goes through the rest of her time of purity, has her monthly cycle, finishes the cycle, has her ghusl. They are divorced. But for the second time, he has the option to reconcile if she chooses to remarry him. They decide, yes, let's try it one more time. So they reconcile. This is after the second talaq. Everything's fine. No problem. Everything's going along fine. But then some major event happens in the marriage that they feel they cannot go along any further. They feel that it's too much now. We can't take it. Both of us mutually agree. And he pronounces one talaq. Again, best case scenario. It's in a state of impurity. And now the third talaq has been pronounced. If he wants to reconcile, he must do so before her monthly cycle stops and she has her ghusl post-monthly cycle. He must do so. He fails to do so. Let's say that he fails to do so. She has had her ghusl from her monthly cycle from the third talaq. Now, that is ba'in. Those two people cannot marry again unless that Muslim lady marries someone else. And if that marriage fails and he divorces her, then the first husband that had been married to his wife may marry her again. This is the principle. Now, you distort that process if you pronounce 3 talaq at once, or if you say, I divorce you 1,000 times, you disrupt that process. Because what you do is you pronounce those 3 at once, or I divorce you 1,000 times. What happens is the woman goes straight into iddah, and you remove the possibility of reconciliation. This is why the third talaq is called the bid'i talaq, because it's so destructive. Although it takes effect, it's so destructive. Because you remove the possibility of reconciliation. The first way, which was the sunnah, there was a possibility of reconciliation. But the third way, by combining them together, it is as if you sort of crush and sandwich together the iddah, and you remove the possibility for reconciliation. And so this is what's happened. This is the severity of what's been done. As far as the ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned, وَبُعُولَتَهُنَّ أَحَقُّ بِرَدِّهِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ إِنْ أَرَادُوا إِصْلَاحًا وَلَهُنَّ مِثْلُ الَّذِي عَلَيْهِنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَلِلرِّجَالِ عَلَيْهِنَّ دَرَجَةٌ وَاللَّهُ عَزِيزٌ حَكِيمٌ. And their husbands have the most right for their return to them in reconciliation if they intend rectification and righteousness. And those women, they have similar rights which have been exercised upon them with righteousness, although the men have a rank over them. And Allah is mighty and wise. Surat Al-Baqarah, Ayat 228. So when you say, now that this talaq has happened, the first or second, the first husband who had pronounced the talaq, he has the most right to put forward his case first. He can be refused. We cannot say, oh, she can refuse him. She can't refuse him. He can be refused, but he has the most right to put forward his case. And then if he's told no, then she may choose a suitor or choose a groom of her choice. Right? So this is the principle at work. You don't have a right to stop and say, well, no, like as for example, what sometimes happens, the family, because the talaq has been pronounced, they don't like the husband or what have you. So they've worked hard to get this talaq. Then the wife realizes the calamity of what's happened, tries to reconcile, and the family interferes to try to stop him from what's his right. Because they know if he comes and he says, I've made a mistake, I want to try again, do you accept that? And she says, yes, I reconcile, and they come back together, then subhanAllah. Then the matter is just a situation where they draw up a new aqd nikah. Nikah.